In photography news this week, Donald Trump's official White House photo has been released, and if you think it looks a little strange, well, you're not alone, because there were some interesting lighting techniques used in that photo, and we are going to break them down in this video and talk about how those photos could have potentially been better. Let's get right into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me for this video, and we are going to break down the lighting techniques that I think were used in the official White House photos of Donald Trump and JD Vance, and we're going to keep this talk completely apolitical, no politics at all in the comments or anything like that. We're just here to talk about photography and portrait photography and how to take the best possible portrait photos. This is absolutely a learning opportunity. I am not here to completely bash another photographer. Well, I am just a little bit, because these photos look really bad, but this is an educational opportunity for you guys. So let's dig into how these images were lit from what I can see in the image. I'll show you guys kind of how to break down images yourself so you can see what other photographers used and how to use those techniques and learn from those techniques. So here are the photos in question, and yes, I think they do look a little bit strange. The first thing I notice when looking at Trump's photo, it looks a lot like his mugshot. You can see that kind of downward tilted chin, little bit of a squinty eye, and then he's turned off to the side just a little bit. Again, looks like that mugshot. And I think that very well could have been intentional by him or his administration team that's setting up this whole photo. I think it was intentional because it's going to get press. People are going to compare those two photos, as I can show you here, and they're going to look at those images, and you're going to get a lot of free press and a lot of free headlines out of that, and it's media that you don't have to pay for, and he doesn't have to pay for. So I think that part wasn't intentional, but that's not the worst part. The worst part, I believe, is the lighting that was done by the photographer in these images. So let's break that down based on what we can see in the photographs. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to turn off my key light, and we're going to kind of relight this portrait with my handy dandy little Lume Cube stick light here. And we're going to talk about each of these lights that I see in this scene. And we're going to start with one of the hair lights. There is definitely a hair light going on behind Trump. You can see it in his hair. And I believe there is a second one going on the opposite side, maybe up a little bit, up a touch. So those are actually good. Hair lights are great for separating your subject from the background, especially if the background is busy or dark. You can help light up the rim of your subject and essentially make them pop off the background. Now, based on the photograph and the reflections in the eyes, you can see that there is another light coming from down below, and it appears there is some sort of bounce card or reflector on top in an attempt to do some sort of reverse clamshell lighting. Typically in clamshell lighting, you will have the light above your subject like this, and then you will have a bounce card or a fill card beneath, and you can see that comes and it fills in some of the shadows, and it looks pretty good. The issue is when you put the light below in this technique, and then you put the reflector on top, it looks very eerie. So if I were to tilt my head down, give a little bit of a winky eye, put a light down here, you can see this looks very eerie. Even when I throw in my reflector here, we're still getting a bit of a funky look. So that is one of the reasons why this portrait looks the way it does and probably could have been done better. I recommend that when doing clamshell lighting, keep your key light on top. There is no reason that you need to have creepy campfire look for your clamshell lighting. Put your light on top like this, make sure it's exposed correctly, and then put your fill card underneath to fill in those shadows. And you can see we have a nice fill here. We have our rim light back here. Let's do kind of the opposite. We have our nice shadows coming down here, and then we fill them in a little bit. You don't want to completely wipe all of your shadows off the face, because shadows give depth and dimension to your portraits. Now, moving on, let's talk about JD Vance's photo, because we have something very similar happening here. We have a very strong light coming from underneath, and we have similar bounce card. The light is very strong on his face, and it looks like there may even have been There could have been another light on top and a light on bottom. The issue here is that his complexion is so much lighter than Donald Trump's. His skin is so much lighter that we are getting very hot areas and reflections from the face. We're getting them on the lips and all sorts of other areas. It just doesn't look good. Plus, there has been some editing done to his eyes that kind of looks like a Mr. Freeze, like he's going to blast some frozen craziness out of his eyes. It just looks very unnatural. So be very careful when you're editing portraits, especially the eyes. The eyes are supposedly the window to the soul, as we say, and they look pretty bad. That's pretty noticeable when you start to over edit. There are some other creative choices that were made that I don't necessarily agree with. I think the background was distracting in both images, more so in Vance's image, but I think there's a lot that could have been done so much better than what happened, especially for an official White House photo. Now, I'd just like to take a couple seconds to talk about the history of White House photos. They've been happening since George Washington back in like 1796 was the first official White House painting. Again, we didn't really have photography back then, so official portraits were painted. And then fast forward a couple hundred years later, we have Barack Obama's official photo from his first term. In 2009, that was the first official photo that was taken on a digital camera, and one of my favorite digital cameras, the Canon 5D Mark II. And you can see a review of that down below. It's still a fantastic camera, and it was a pretty good picture. Again, the first digital official White House photo of a president. Pretty cool. Now we've come a little ways since then. That was back in 2009, a few years ago. And I believe the newest official portraits, if I'm not mistaken, were taken on the Nikon Z8. Great camera, just the lighting could have been a little bit better. So that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for helping me keep this as apolitical as possible. Let's do the same thing in the comments, but if you have something to say, please let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe, and check out my photography one-on-one coaching if you would like me to coach you one-on-one for some personalized photography lessons. And until next time, get out and go shoot.